Technically, no, but
But it's just for
so,
the,
so,
It's not installation cost.
but it's
it-
not,
it's
it's
not
not material
installation.
cost. Yeah,
correct.
They will oversee whatever installation the client has agreed to, they will oversee the implementation.
Yes, sir.
All right,
so,
that was my question. All right.
so I have a question. When you said this is à la carte, I take that to mean that you're looking for approval for these 4 elements. And then how will you actually then decide when to execute each of the 4? You know, thinking back to a discussion we had this morning in our training and comparing it to the federal government process, you know, we can have a budgetary number of 29.5, but then we have to actually appropriate the money for step 1 for you to actually go spend it. Is that said correctly, Brad? We would have to then subsequently appropriate that money. My point is.
That's what he said, actually, he said no earlier.
But if we think that the most important thing on this list, for example, is the Beachwalker Drive landscape enhancements and the overseeing of the actual execution of that, if we approve this whole thing, we can actually go and execute numbers 3 and 4 and not do 1 and 2 for 6-8 months from now. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
So we're really looking at, I'll say, 3 separate projects here.
It could be broken up like that.
And then we can, but if we're gonna vote on it as one thing, we can say yes, but then we have to come back a second time and say, okay, we're ready to do the Kiowa Island Parkway Comprehensive Landscape Enhancement Plan and give the go-ahead there, or are we given approval to do the whole thing and then somewhere else the trigger is gonna be pulled to actually execute? How is that gonna work?
So I think ideally for us, and if it might work out for you guys too, I think ideally we would approve this in its entirety today. And then that way we don't have to come back a second, third, and fourth time for approval for the other tasks.
What we would just be approving is the development of the plans. You'd separately come back to us to get
For
approval
construction.
for any construction, which could then be phased.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
Yes, construction is not a topic for today. This is just for the plan development.
Okay, I get that. But as far as construction goes, if we approve this today, then are we in a position to start construction on this immediately?
Well, they would
I
have
mean,
to
with subsequent
develop.
approvals.
They would have to, approving this today means that outdoor spatial design is gonna get started with their design.
How long will it take to do the planning portion of each one of these elements? I think that may be,
That's gonna help a lot, yeah.
It would for the, it would really depend on, it would take our office probably 2 to 4 weeks for each phase of design. So if we created a, preliminary master plan, we present it, make sure that it's approved, we would receive feedback. Depending on how long it took to get feedback and what type of feedback we received, we'd be able to have it. I mean, typically it takes about a month.
So if this gets, if we recommend to council to approve this and they approve it next Tuesday at a council meeting, then you guys would start pretty much immediately thereafter with the design work?
We would start immediately working on the design.
but you said it would take 2 to 4 weeks for each one? Or so you're doing them in serial fashion, or it's 2 to 4 weeks to do the complete municipal center, KIP, and BWD?
It would be, so the Grow Native Trail, all of this work, this design work, along with the rain garden, because it's in the same area, that would be pretty easy for us to do within, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks from approval. We would need an additional couple of weeks to work on the Kiowa Island Parkway areas that were not approved in the previous town council. And then the Beachwalker Drive landscape enhancements from the previous presentation, that's what's the most different in terms of the scope we provide, because we've gone from originally, I think maybe it was an additional $40,000 to do construction drawings, full blueprints, to working hand in hand with the landscape contractor to develop all right, let's put this here, let's do a few things here, and then we work hand in hand to develop the budget, or the total cost for Beach Walker. And then that would be a little bit more back and forth with, that'd be a little bit more back and forth to say, yeah, we want to spend this money, because I know there was discussion, well, do we do Beach Walker now or later? Do we do the left side or the right side? And so we're saying we're happy to be a consultant in that as directed by the town.
So so again, I don't want to get too granular on this, but if this gets approved by the council on Tuesday, I'm assuming that the council can also give some direction on what we want to do first and get started on that one.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that was, okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of additional follow-up questions. The first one is with respect to Kiawah Island Parkway. As we all know, the parkway is already landscaped, but your proposal talks about some items that were not installed during Phase 1. So can you just give me a pie in the sky? What improvements are we looking for along Kiawah Island Parkway?
So originally, we split it into 4 sections, I think it was. So 3 of the 4 sections were approved under the previous budget to do the landscape enhancements. And in those areas, we removed a significant amount of sod and replaced that with native pollinators and ornamental grasses and some native evergreens. And so that made up 75% of the parkway from the Freshfields roundabout all the way to the front gate. There was one area that town council at the time felt like it was good enough. And so, so this proposal includes going back and, looking at the design again or making recommendations to improve that one section. And that was basically from the Freshfields roundabout to, how far?
It was pretty much to the ingress from the parkway onto the into Freshfields. If you go through, right, pretty much. If you go back from Andale back towards the roundabout on the inbound side, it's all lawn. It wasn't touched. So
Got it.
you'll notice
Okay.
that
No, I
there's a
understand.
separation of.
All right, so my second question is, we all know about the gravel situation at Mingo Point Curve. Would it be a good idea to incorporate into this plan resolution of that stone issue so we can get that completed sooner than whatever the alternate would be?
So we're going to get that completed sooner than later, regardless of what happens with this proposal. We're trying to get it such that that can be rectified by Tuesday.
Yeah, it's basically it's a separate project.
A week from
No,
tomorrow.
but even a week from tomorrow is fine. All right, so that's fine.
Yeah,
So
that's-
so that
that's
question is,
separate from this.
so I pull that back then. All right.
Any other comments?
Yes, question. As it relates to a similar question that Russ just brought up, are these curb cuts at these rather tight curves? One is what we call the Mingo curve. The other one is the curve right before you come to the bridge from Freshfields towards the island. And in that driving direction, we see very often that large trucks are not capable to taking the curve, properly on the asphalt, so they really crouch into the vegetation, which at that point I think is mostly grass, but still it looks on a continuous basis, horrible. Would that, number one here, include a resolution of that problem?
So I would say that we would be glad to provide tools to look at the aesthetics of it. What I don't want to do is commit to traffic engineering solutions that are
No, I think
outside of our
there are
expertise.
people that are experts that I learned from Brian that are working on this. But
Right.
what I think you need to do is whatever they would recommend, let's say a curb, just hypothetically, then you would need to include that into your plan in terms of what comes, behind the curve. Is it grass? Is it vegetation? Large stones, boulders? I mean, that is part of your number one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we would coordinate with any.
Okay, so whatever input we get from these experts, you would incorporate in your plan and in the vegetation planning behind that? Okay.
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to have a follow-up to that. Michael, thank you for bringing that back up, and John. So I suspect then the resolution by next Tuesday is just going to be removal of the stones, not how we fix.
Removal of the stones.
Okay, because the engineering repair to that is relatively quite simple. You just put compactable structural fill on top of it and put then a concrete apron around it,
That's,
analogous to what they have in Cacique. It's the
That's very
exact same
similar to
thing.
what we're thinking about doing.
Okay. So who is going to be doing that work? Is that an emergency repair?
Yes.
Okay.
And then second question, help me again, at what time, if we start next Tuesday, at what time will all number 1, number 2, and number 3 ready to go? What is that time frame for 1, 2, and 3? Finishing so that we could start decision and then construction.
1, 2, and 3. I mean, I would say by, depending on the feedback we get, middle of May.
Okay. Could I please ask you, when it comes, assuming we would decide positively here today, and it comes before the town council next week, that we get a definite completion date
Yeah,
commitment from you?
that's actually an excellent point. So
the
maybe
design
even a
work.
pro forma schedule on when these things would be started and ended.
Right.
That would help a lot.
And I'm not saying this to push you,
Sure.
but I think the contract we want to sign with you guys should have a timing, right? And we know there can be weather issues or whatsoever. We understand. I mean, it's not that we're holding you responsible and then refusing to pay you. That's not my intention here. But I think each contract should have a somehow reliable timeline.
Okay.
So that we know by the end of May, number 1, number 2, number 3 is done. Okay? Next question. You are proposing the construction observation, but only for task 3. So what about the construction observation for number 1 and number 2?
So the construction observation for 1 and 2, because we're not providing the construction drawings, because we're providing more of a vision, and it's going to be graphics that represent what it would look like, and it's not going to be bid out. It would be performed by the landscape maintenance company. There would not be drawings for us to oversee. We could be an hourly consultant during that time, but technically it's not construction observation from the way we see it. In a way to reduce the design fee as much as we could, we basically are saying we're going to cast a vision and make sure that everyone is on board with what this is going to look like, and then we're going to coordinate with the landscape maintenance company to have it installed.
Okay, but that means, back to what John was asking in the very beginning here, is completing number 1 and number 2 will not be shovel-ready. It's a vision, it's a drawing, so then comes the next step where we need to, approve a contract for somebody who comes up with the shovel-ready plans, and then, the construction oversight.
Actually, approve somebody that comes up with the shovel. They'll do it to this vision that they've got, right?
Not what I understood.
For 1 and 2, I thought yes, but not for
Evan, are
3.
you guys doing this the same way you did before, which is, so what you do is council is essentially approving this, and then for 1 and 2, you guys going to have a conceptual design that will come back to council for approval?
That's right.
And then once that, so this end of May, so then normally what they do is, if council gives them approval in April, they'll do all their design work. It may not come back to you guys until May to actually approve 1 and 2, but 3 is just going to be more getting materials in. So 1 and 2 could be in May, you guys come, they propose a design. Once you guys sign off on that, then we'll essentially get costs for it and get a timeline and get it done.
But that means, if I understand you correctly, that means that the 30,000 roughly that is up for decision here, is not the total planning cost. At least for number 1 and number 2, there will be additional planning, mapping out, et cetera, before the first shovel is picked up. Is that correct or not?
The way we in the first attempt with a larger contract, it was a design bid build. And the way we've restructured this proposal is design build. And so, meaning it's going to be up to the landscape contractor who will not bid it out. It will be performed as part of maintenance or as part of it will not include bid documents as it did before. So that significantly speeds up the process, but it reduces your upfront cost.
So for 1, 2, and 3, or just for 1 and 2?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
3 is a,
Number 3 will be similar, except that number 3 will be simply us out on site as directed by the town to say, we think you need 30 of those or 50 of these, and it will not be,
Okay, that's where my questions are going to be. I have a little more detailed questions on that, but go ahead, Michael, finish.
And then last question for myself. So I think the cost now dropped by what, half?
a little bit more than that,
To
from
the
72 to
retreat.
29.5.
And could you just very quickly tell me where you cut the money out?
In the construction drawings, producing construction drawings, the meetings and the coordination associated with that.
Okay. Because you're saying, you have the vision, you know how this is supposed to look like, and then whoever we contract for the doing, they will then take your drawings, or your visional drawings, and then put a tree here, without running around with a map.
That's right. So another way to look at it on a smaller scale would be, so for a residential project, we might be hired to come out and someone says, I want a pool and a patio in my backyard, so we can show them exactly what that's gonna look like. And we could say, here's how it looks. And then the contractor of their choosing can tell them exactly what plants they need, exactly how many plants.
Okay.
So, and that reduces our time by 60%.
And very pragmatic. Okay, good. Thank you.
Brad?
All right, I think I'm more confused than ever between the distinction between 1 and 2 and 3, and I'm a little bit concerned about some of the language in task 3. For example, most efficient ways to enhance the landscape with minimum financial investment from the town, where those same limitations are not, that same limitation is not attached to 1 or 2. So there may be a little bit of disconnect because we discussed a couple of options, potential options at the strategic planning retreat with regard to Beachwalker Drive. I think we were in general agreement. It didn't make sense necessarily to do the full-on major landscape like KIP, in part because of potential development along a certain portion of Beachwalker Drive. But that portion of Beachwalker Drive that would be affected is fairly limited. It's from the general store to the Kika administrative buildings, and then a little smaller portion way down at the end. But all of the rest of Beachwalker Drive should remain relatively untouched by the construction project. So I'm not sure why you're not saying that some drawings and construction plans and everything else wouldn't be necessary for Beachwalker Drive. If that was originally the recommendation, why is that no longer the case?
The construction drawings are going to be done for Beachwalker.
No, it
No,
says
they're
it's
not.
not. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is the way we were able to remove 60% of the proposal, thinking that, based on the previous comments, and maybe I misunderstood, was, why are we going to commit this much this early when we don't really know exactly what's going on? And so it sounds like what I took that to mean was for any of the projects. And so we, in talking with the town, said, all right, well, we're going to scale back and we'll be more landscape consultants and we'll help you create that vision so that then you can decide, well, if we like this vision, then we know what to detail design.
So then, let's just focus only on number 3.
Okay?
So on the Beachwalker Drive landscape enhancements, when you finish that, what does that document look like? Is it a picture of what should be there, a drawing?
So under the piece that says diagrammatic and written report, it basically would be, in my mind, and I'm happy to add any type of more descriptive language to the proposal, it would be more of a bubble diagram, and a descriptive report that says, in these areas, we recommend layers of evergreen material to screen views of this, or we recommend native ornamental grasses to,
Okay.
soften this area. And
So you do that for each section along Beach Walker, and some sections we exclude because it's right,
The
right next to
left
the general store.
side, the east side along.
So you do that, and where you've got an area that you've skipped, you say we're avoiding that because of pending construction or whatever the words are.
Right.
And then so you have that document, and then you give that to Artique, and they determine which plants go in that are evergreen screening or whatever it is, and go plant them? Is that how that works? And you help them decide that?
That's correct. It would be, instead of having construction drawings, it would be a conversation with Artigues that says, okay, we see this red bubble in this
That's a
area.
design build, not a more conventional.
Yeah, it's
construction
basically just,
drawings,
it's
everything.
getting rid of, it's basically kind of putting together the bare bones to get the job done, and it requires less, there's not any visual aids. So, this is eliminating the drawings that show all the different before and afters, and it also eliminates all the extra time for us to do the plant counts and create the detailed documents so that they really could either be bid or they'd have to go through any type of approval process, which we don't need for the town.
So why was that proposed if not necessary in the first instance and not now in this instance? I think it's the interest at least of the communities that live along Beach Walker that at the very least, all the side of the road, Beach Walker, across from the two portions that are yet to be developed, be fully landscaped as one would finally do. Same as KIP or anything else. So
So I think, if I could, I think what the interpretation was on our part and his part as well was the discussions about Beach Walker and scaling it back was scaled back so much so that it was gonna be, we were gonna highlight the areas that we know need attention. And it wasn't gonna be as much of a construction project as originally proposed. So with that being said, I think what he's trying to say is it's gonna be a lot more, not behind a desk drawing, but out in the field and making those decisions in the field. So it's just not gonna be as much as it would have been.
So that's what I'm trying to glean is what was originally being proposed? And I want to compare what in front of us now as compared to what was ultimately being proposed. For example, one thing, which I don't know was part of the original proposal, it's clearly not part of this, is Beach Walker Drive is crumbling on the edges because it's not curbed. And it's one of the very few main roads on all of Kiowa Island that's not curbed. It's curbed literally just from Beach Walker KIP intersection to the end of the general store, not after that. That's just an example of whether that was part of the original proposal or not, or what is the gap or differential between?
Well, so there's no road work that was gonna be part of their proposal. They're strictly landscaping. The road work would come from a maintenance, road repair and maintenance line item that we have, that I did put some money into, for us to do some of those repairs for this fiscal year.
I'm not talking about repair. There are some repairs, but I mean more permanent solution. I mean, is the intention ultimately, for example, to curb Beach Walker Drive like all the other major roads are, if not every road on Kiowa Island?
Well, it hasn't been a topic of discussion. I mean, our parkway isn't curbed, except for in maybe 1% of the entire road. Curbing hasn't been a topic of discussion. It's more of fixing up, cleaning up those areas that do need to get either cut out and redone or resurfaced altogether.
But once you get on the island, every other island road is curbed. Is there, continue on KIP, it's curbed, all the adjunct.
I think that's just the difference between the community association and the town. I don't have an answer for that question.
And Brett, only the main streets are curved. The side roads are not.
Well, all the, I'm saying, yes, the main roads, I would characterize this one. What's it? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, not the entire parkway, but as Brian said, one of the things is that if council wanted to look at adding curbing onto the parkway or beach walker, that would be a separate discussion and look at. When we did the right turn lane for Beach Walker Drive for the county park, I mean, that could have been an opportunity. But those are things that if we wanted to look at that, we definitely can put together a cost. We use True Luck. We would, can bid it out, but we can look at adding curbing if that's something that council would like to do.
So let's focus on this landscape issue for a moment. So if this gets approved today and then subsequently approved by council, this $9,500 line item for landscape enhancement, will that give you enough information to do all of the plantings that you need to do along the sections of Beach Walker that he says need to be addressed?
But I guess it's still the question is what would have been done differently? If that's the case, what would have the original proposal entailed that this one does not?
The original proposal was the exact same process that we did for Key Island Parkway, where we had conceptual design, we met with the town, we presented everything, we made sure that the town was fully on board with how it was gonna look, how it was gonna feel. Public meetings. Then we had construction drawings in which we outlined every single plant, every size, species, location, everything. And so the town knew exactly what it was getting in that. They knew that the tree was gonna be right here and grass was gonna be right here. This is eliminating a significant portion of that and being out on site with our TEEGs to say, okay, here's where it's gonna go.
So,
And then-
so instead, in this, what you're talking about is you'll have something that says, we think that evergreens need to be in this section, but you won't necessarily specify, and it's to block out X, but you won't necessarily specify Leland cypress, 4 feet tall, 10 of them.
That's exactly right.
And then you get out there with these guys, and together you'll decide, we want 10 Leland cypress 4 feet tall, and they'll go get them, or somebody will bring them to them, and they'll put them in the ground.
Right. So, at the end of the day, I mean, there's just different ways that you can work through a landscape project. I mean, as landscape architects, we would prefer to, nitpick every detail and look at every single space and pick every single tree and make sure that it was perfect. And that's, in my opinion, why Key Island Parkway looks so good. So, I would prefer the original proposal, but as, the way I interpreted the comments from the last meeting was, how can we scale this way back? And just kind of do this.
Well, I think the concern is the notion of scaling back. We wanted to scale back the cost, but we didn't want to scale back the resulting appearance of Beach Walker Drive's landscape. We wanted it to still be everything we would expect it to be, whatever that is.
And I think it will, but where the disconnect is I think it will, and we would have our hand in it as we work back and forth. The difference is you need to put your full trust in us to do it without any documents showing what you're getting. Other than a price list and a bubble diagram saying, we're gonna have some evergreens here and some,
So you will have no visuals.
Well,
You have no
we'll have
visual
we'll have these
rendering.
bubble diagrams, and I get that,
yeah,
and I can work,
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
and again, I don't want to speak for the other communities along there, but from my view, that's probably fine. If at the end of the day, but for the fact that it might be placed a few feet differently or maybe less, not quite the same height or slightly different variety, the end result for that 3/4 of Beach Walker Drive that is not the two little portions that are still will have development access will end up being the same thing that you would have originally proposed under the more expensive approach, then that's fine. I think that's fine.
Because what we're after is a result. We don't really care how you get there. We're expecting a certain landscape result. And what you're telling us is, you think this can get us there. In
that's
terms of
correct. Yeah, it's my opinion that at the end of the day, if we're doing what we're saying in this proposal, that it should be at the same level as the previous proposal. There's just less pretty pictures and detailed information to give up front.
Well, before you start, we won't have an inventory of the plants you're going to put in the ground necessarily by variety and height and so forth.
That's correct. So in the previous, like with Kiawah Island Parkway, we presented that information, and then we received a good bit of feedback. Oh, we don't want this plant. We don't like that. You know, we
Yeah.
want to do this. We want that. And so we were able to incorporate all that feedback. There won't be any feedback.
And that's what I wanted to, I was about to highlight. I want you guys all to note the end product of the design phase. The end product is a report that's going to be describing what can be done. Because, and it doesn't include any revisions. So if you guys or whoever decides they want revisions to that, that's going to be extra cost. So I
Potentially.
just want you guys to understand what the end product is that we're buying.
Potentially.
And I'm okay with that because I don't
I am
think.
too. I just wanted
Because I
to
don't
make
think
sure
I'm a
everybody's aware.
better
of it.
landscape designer than these guys.
But we also, when it comes up, I'm kind of thinking ahead, when it comes up next Tuesday, we may say, yeah, this is great, but what we would like to be able to do is when you get those first bubble diagrams drawn, we'd like to at least see it. And then, and maybe suggest a couple
And
of
probably
changes.
share that with Inlet Cove and
Possibly,
Riverview, because I
possibly.
think they, you know,
But
That's where I'm letting you guys know. This proposal does not include any revisions for what you just suggested.
yeah, but for us to look at it as a council and say, yep, that's good, or, you know, pay more attention to this section is probably all we're gonna get.
Because you're going to solicit input from a community, they're going to want,
Well, then that takes it right back to where we were before.
Again, I think just to have some opportunity to kind of review what's being proposed.
Well,
I think that's really
I think-
dangerous.
I think we can talk about that Tuesday when if this comes up before the council, but I think I'm with Russ on that, I think you're then making it look like a different project than what they're bidding here. So,
One quick thing about the revisions, I mean, and we can add it to the proposal if we need to. It's easy to revise a bubble diagram. I don't know what type of comments we would get from a bubble diagram. We can make this bubble a little smaller or a little bigger. So it's easy to revise construction drawings because someone might say, it's been my experience that if you use this plant, you know, and you give feedback on specific detailed information, we're happy to either, I mean, really the earliest revisions, we're happy to revise a bubble diagram to incorporate feedback, but all that really could be commented on would be the size and shape of the bubble or the description of the bubble. You know, maybe we don't want
That's right.
evergreens in this area.
okay,
And,
so,
and I think, to your point, I think the interest is primarily in getting something done. I think at the end of the day. So does this include, will your vision include potentially removal of some?
Yes.
Because some of the stuff there is just,
Bad.
taken out.
That's right, that's right. So it would start, you know, with the kickoff meeting and the field visit where we would go out and assess everything. We'd photograph everything, we'd make decisions, you know, both in the office and out in the field. We're actually working with Artigues on Daniel Island, and it's this exact same process. But there's not any public input, there's not any, Daniel Island's trusted us to come through their neighborhoods and say, hey, this is how you make them better.
And so just in terms of kind of maybe the self-interest or selfishness here, in terms of prioritization, my preference but would be to actually focus on 3 first. You know, it's all great and well to do municipal center where nobody comes.
Right.
But hopefully.
and I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
hope
I-
springs
you know, I'd be
eternal.
surprised, particularly after last meeting.
Yeah, so just to, you know, do that one first, and then after that 2 to 4 weeks, then since it is shovel-ready, assuming you guys get lined up with, you know, the landscape stuff, and that work could start on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, the work, that would come down to the contractor, but yeah, next week we could have a meeting with the town and with Artigues and walk the site and start looking at different areas and taking
But I
photographs.
guess what I'm saying, once you've done all of that, and then we approve, there's gonna be an additional cost for the materials and installation. We'll have to approve that, but once we get your 9,500 worth of visualization, once we get back that, we say this looks pretty good, then
And Artiques may come back to us and say, yeah, and it's gonna cost $6,000 for the plants, and we'll say, okay, and they'll go start. And then we'll get this beautiful result. That's the plan.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments?
Just one question.
yes.
Some time ago, we, found interest, we said that everything had, the desire was that everything was of nature or, you know,
Design with nature.
Native plants and
native
all that.
plants.
native plants.
Or native.
To what extent have we hamstrung you? Daniel Island, is Daniel Island doing that? I mean, if we would say, we just really want a beautiful landscape plan for the parkway, for Beachwalker, for the town, would you be looking at different plans? Be looking at things that would be different, or would you?
No, we're fully on board with the vision that the town presented before we ever did Kiowa Island Parkway. And we're not hamstrung at all. The plant material that we're able to use in, that is, I think it was 98% native for the Parkway. There are a few things where non-native plants, it's really better if those are used from a maintenance standpoint, as long as they're non-invasive. But the native plant palette out here, it really is what Kiowa has been doing and is what has made Kiowa beautiful. I mean, since I've been coming here in the late 70s.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that you had everything to work with.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And the Conservancy really recommends.
So,
No, I knew it came highly recommended, I just was curious.
So I only have 3 more points just to mention. So one, as I said, please look at these 2 curves. The one is the Mingo Point, and the other one, Brian, we just spoke about how to fix this. I'm not advocating that we put a curb, all the way along. I don't think that's necessary, and would probably also destroy a little bit the natural feeling that the parkway has. But I would really want you to look at this and give us recommendations. Second, there are, I believe, at least 2 wet areas that have developed along Kiowa Island Parkway with almost permanently standing water, at least in the wetter season, which then leads to the fact that the landscapers are not entering, trash is piling up behind the water, et cetera. So maybe we can find a solution to mitigate this in a way that it A, looks nicer, and B, it's not, a collecting place for stuff that flies out of the window or from whatever pickup truck opening. And then, I don't know what you think about this, Brad. And I can see that we are moving number 3 to number 2. I'm not sure that I would see number 3 as number 1, to be honest, okay?
well, these are not sequentially
No, I
how
know,
they're
I
being
know.
done. They're
I
just,
I think he was saying it was sequential.
Yeah, but anyway, so my sequence
order
would be
you want.
slightly different than yours, Brad, but I think we both understand that. Should we also give some thoughts to actually curbs on Beachwalker Drive, given the fact that a lot of people drive there to the park? A lot of
part of a
people drive
landscape,
there that
not as
are.
part of a landscape contract.
No, I mean, that's my point. I mean, should we give them some guidance to say, maybe we want to understand what the benefits are, or the.
Well, that's more of a traffic management plan, not a landscaper plan, is I guess my point is,
Is it, do you guys get involved in that kind of?
Our landscape, we are happy to coordinate with a civil engineer who would be looking at the actual edge management, if
But
that's
but
even.
do you, I guess the question is, does that, whether or not it is curbed, how does that impact, if at all, your landscape recommendations?
It would impact potential plant material behind the curb, but we would never say, we recommend a curb in this area, because there's so many other implications. It's going to change the grading and drainage patterns. You potentially will need flumes or catch basins. It's curbing, I mean, if a civil engineer was standing here, they'd say, that's something we have to look at, not just, here's a curb. It's, okay, what does that do? Where does the water go once it hits this curb? Things like that. So we would not be making those recommendations.
All right, so we are not setting any conditions
no,
here.
I don't think so.
All right, then 2 questions which are kind of related.
Hit 3, and now you got
I know,
2?
I'm sorry. I was miscounting here. So when is the landscaping contract coming up for decision again, Brian? Because we have a company that takes care of the weekly maintenance, I believe, right?
Yeah, same
When
guys.
is this coming up? Oh, that's this gentleman back there. So when is this up again for bid?
I believe it's next year.
Yeah.
I think, did we do, or maybe they've got
I
an
don't know, we have to
extension.
recall it because one of the things that we put in there is that as long as we had the contract with them, then some of our plantings was warranted.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we
they're
agreed, so the former
warranting-
council had agreed to that because the plants are warranted as long as they had put them in. So that
Okay.
was one of the
And
agreements.
you spoke to them about the trash pickup along the parkway?
Yes, yeah, and we're gonna come up with a better plan, but they're aware of that for sure.
And then this is really my last question. Remind me again, from the Freshfields roundabout to here, we don't own this, right? That's
Correct.
county.
State owns the causeway.
Well, the state owns the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the portions to the bridge and between the bridge and here?
No, it's
State.
a state.
That's still state.
And then county picks up on one side of
So
that.
we would have no influence on landscaping in that portion.
We could landscape, we just have to get county permission to encroach, and then we would be responsible for, probably they'll give us the road and say we have to take care of the road as well. But we can always see if we can landscape their property.
Sure, they'd be more
Because
than
I
happy.
personally feel that there's a very visible difference
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
when approaching the island. So I could see myself being in favor of doing something like that to take over that responsibility
As long
as
as they
well.
didn't give us the road to maintain too.
Exactly.
And to it, they may just give us the okay to do the
But-
plantings, and then we're responsible
But
for
maybe
for
we
maintenance
can,
of the plants.
incorporate that in a phase two into that,
Well,
project.
probably the way to do that would be to get Stephanie and Brian to talk to the county and the state at first, and then do that as a separate.
And even
That's
more,
not a bad
Maybe
idea.
put that on our.
an even
long-
more expensive iteration of that, Michael, would be adding, which I think we should consider at some point in time, a pedestrian bridge alongside.
So let's don't get out of control
so
here. Let's
two-
focus on this
Two
proposal.
clarifications. One, I said Artigues,
Artigues, sorry.
Artigues is here?
This is
Okay,
Ron.
so somewhat related to trash, I haven't witnessed this myself, but I've heard this from the Inlet Cove folks, is one of their complaints is that in many cases, the landscape folks, when they've got like debris, down palms and limbs and everything else, they're not taking them away. They're just shoving it back into the treescape.
I addressed that with Drew, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, because it was something that I noticed myself too. And just wanted to make sure that they need to.
and Drew
discuss-
is part
Definitely
of
see it right
Artigues.
along behind the KIRE building right now along.
Focus on this proposal.
Okay, the last little piece of that proposal, then just to clarify that your kind of vision will encompass all of Beach Walker Drive, but for the portion from the Kiwa General Store to the Kika Community Building, and then from the sleeping policeman, or whatever we call that, the little pathway.
hump.
A road hump down to Beach Walker Park on that side of the road. Everything else is going to remain as it is now, so they're not going to be changed. Those are the only two places where you're going to potentially have curb cuts.
And what we should do along those lines is when you have this first field walk, Brad probably should avail himself to that time.
Certainly
and To
should.
point those specific areas out.
Yeah, we'd be happy, I mean, not just you as a council member, but as a resident along Beach Walker Drive.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Well, and I know that, the one who's been most vocal on this stuff is the president of the Inlet Cove HOA. I'm sure she would be, she's the one that sends Stephanie.
Yeah, we'd be happy to get
and,
input.
and we're sure then we get the right spots. Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you all.
The third, thanks, guys. The third item is review and recommendation to town council for approval of the Air Med Care contract renewal. Craig?
Thank you.
2016, the town entered a one-year contract with AirMed Care Network to provide air medical transportation services for Key Island's residents. Under this agreement, any individuals who transported for medical necessity by Meducare Air or any other medical network provider will be covered under the terms and conditions of a standard AirMed Care Network membership, provided that the transportation originated from the, location in Charleston County. The Public Safety Committee discussed this renewal of this contract on last month, this month in March, and like to make a recommendation to the Ways and Means to have this approved for continuing of the agreement. The recommended renewal amount is $8,163 annually. In this plan, also, residents can also upgrade to a full coverage membership for $35 annually, and which will include them to be covered at 320 locations across 38 states.
How does this rate compare to where we paid this year? Is it the same?
Same. Same rates, same protocols,
conditions?
same conditions.
So it's really just an extension of the
It's just an
existing
extension.
contract?
Yes, sir.
Stephanie, do you have a sense to, is this about the membership option? Is that communicated broadly to our resident base, and do people know about that?
We need to continue doing that. I know if it's approved, we can push out information. We've had, during the emergency preparedness, we've had AirMed Care at those meetings to discuss the contract. When we started off with the contract, we pushed it out to the members. So we've had this contract in place for a number of years. The price that we have is the municipal price. That particular membership actually stopped maybe about now 4 years ago.
2018.
And so what we've essentially have done is they've kept this contract in place for us as long as we continue the renewal. If we stop and say we want to pick it back up a year later, we will be at a different bracket and pay a higher price. So
So how many people used this service last year?
I asked Craig to look
So-
into that.
So the Wes will be here at our next town council meeting. He's out of town, actually out the country. But I know when I started last year, I know we used it twice. This year, we actually used it, but the person that used it was not a resident. So far as me being here, we used it twice. And in those two incidents, it was a very critical incident that we needed to have AirMed down.
So had we not had this contract and we needed to use it twice, what would it have cost to use it twice? Those individuals had to have paid that, right?
That and could have cost someone's life.
Yeah, well, that's notwithstanding, but how many dollars would it have cost?
I don't know if we know, you don't have that cost. We
don't
probably
have
don't
the
have that
cost
cost.
for
We probably
that.
have to get that from him.
If it's an
Yeah.
expensive proposition to get
I'm-
air back?
It is
I'm not
expensive.
sure what that price going to be,
She said they estimated at 25,000.
Okay.
but Wes will be
Personnel,
here
equipment.
for
Was
that.
air lifted out within this past few days?
It was a
That was
worker.
last week, yeah.
Twice.
That's what I was talking about.
So that's just that one, the past few days was one of these?
No.
It was,
Well,
yes.
it wasn't a resident, it was a worker.
Yeah,
So-
There was, and yesterday, there was something yesterday as well, I believe.
So remember, so one of the things is that we've had a number of airlifts from Kiowa, but a lot of them have been contractors, so they did not, so our municipal plan was not activated. But of course, there could be other ways that cost is covered. But our plan is you have to be a, resident, and there's other stipulations when our plan is activated.
And who makes the decision whether you go on ambulance or you go on the helicopter?
That's our first responders.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to approve?
I put a motion forward to approve.
I second.
Second? Any more discussion?
I would just ask you, Craig, because that question came up with the reporting. I assume we do get reporting from them, how many times they come to the island to rescue somebody, or we don't?
Previously, we didn't, but I spoke to Wes, and he'll provide that for us.
Please,
And
make
like I said,
sure-
he'll be at our next
Yeah.
council meeting, and
But
hopefully
make sure
we'll have
it ends up in the contract that we approve next week.
Okay.
That they give us, I don't know, maybe a quarterly report of how many times they had to come to the island.
do.
I think that would be
Yep.
good for the community.
Yep.
And I would also, Stephanie, recommend that on a kind of a quarterly basis, we do, remind our community members of that membership
Yeah.
option.
We can do that
I mean, for
through-
$45, you get a lot.
Well, even apart from the membership option, I'm not sure most people even realize
Yeah.
that this just comes with residency.
Right, yeah.
You're
We'll
right about-
we'll
you're
definitely
right
push
about
out,
And I
if this
also
is
wanna add,
approved, we'll
we-
push out the
We
information.
had
again.
a drop-in, I believe it was last month, it was in February, and the AirMed provider was here and spoke to residents. So, I mean, they're aware of it, and we're actually pushing it out.
Where does the helicopter come from?
So they,
Where's the helicopter come from?
they have a helicopter pad at MUSC, but it's kind of spread out.
10-minute flight.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I'm having trouble locating this line item in the budget because I wanted to check the dollar amount.
It's on-
All right. Okay, I'm going from memory, so I'm not sure what I'm saying is correct. I thought I remember seeing the line item in the budget was like 200,000. Is that correct? Yeah. No, it's not. All right, so this $8,800 value is a line item in the budget. It's not a line item, it's included.
The sub-item.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So, so then I have a follow-up question. So, it just sounds like a deal that is really fabulous, where we are paying only $8,800 for this insurance policy, but a cost would have been $25,000 per trip. I mean, I just,
Well, that's if you don't have insurance. So if you have insurance, then you would file a claim through your insurance, and whatever your insurance doesn't cover.
But the individuals would be
yeah,
responsible.
no,
for
I
Right.
understand that. I'm just
Right.
trying to get my arms around it. So like, if we had 2 or 3 incidents last
Right.
year, it'd be 25,000
It's-
times 3.
right. It's a great
And this
cost.
is unlimited.
Yeah, I think it's a great value that the town provides the residents here.
Okay.
And it is like an insurance, because we may only use it 1 year, or we may not use it at all 1 year, but it's a value that the town provides.
Yeah, I was
If it
just trying to
saves one
explore. I
life,
thought
it's
there would be
worth it.
other
Right.
hidden costs somewhere. If, 3 visits, it's just surprising how good a deal is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
All right.
any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Fine.
Opposed? Okay, thanks, Craig. So the chairman's report, I don't know that I have anything to add other than what we've talked about already. Just a reminder that on the minutes that we're deferring, Petra, will you just wait to send those at the next Ways and Means packet?
Basically done, you just can't approve them because nobody's looked at
So let's wait until next Ways and Means, that way they won't get lost along the way, and it'll be in that packet.
it. It's gonna be an agenda item, so it'll.
Okay, all right. Okay, Dorota, your turn.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with the quick review of the budget report for the first 10 months. We talked last Ways and Means that you would prefer to see them monthly, not quarterly. So I did that. And I made a little bit of changes for what we had, so we compared to last year, the same period, and look also at the total budget. So for the 8 months ended end of February, our total revenues were slightly higher. They were about 9 million. It was about 831,000, or 10% higher than compared to year-to-date for last year, but that was mostly due to interest revenue. They about 75% of the total budget, and which is pretty much. We're going to be over the budget because this is all cash basis. So even though it's for 8 months, but there is only 7 months of collection of revenues. As far,
Rhoda, is that the reason why there's the huge variance in business licenses?
so, well, with the business licenses, actually, it's not, because last year, it was the first year where we extended business license renewal season till April. Before it was through February. So a lot of people were kind of on the same habit to renew in January. And right now, we have this extra 4 months. So I just look at I still feel we're going to be with the budget, with business license revenues. We still have the big companies have not renewed yet because they have this additional 2 months. So
And why did we give these additional 2 months?
it was the state. So we changed, it used to be the state law. Yeah, we used to be, every municipality was on a different schedule pretty much. So they made it, so everyone is April 30th right now. So this is just the timing issue, but this is.
It is a timing issue. There's
It
no
is.
reason to believe there's going to be any material variance.
No, I actually looked, so through today, we are already at 1,000,001. Yeah. So as far as the expenditures, we are 980,000 higher than what it was for the same time last year. And there is few items that were major contributors to the variance, and this is a personnel cost, one of them, but this we had, I kind of made it 18.8 compared to 22.7, but we had some changes in staffing or addition in staff. And because of that, we also, the benefits were lower.
So just on that one, you said 3 or 4 additional staff?
Yeah, so we had 3 additional people hired for the same, through the 12 months.
Okay, and 3 people accounted for 700,000 annualized. It's going to be a $1 million difference?
No. Well,
No,
why
that's
you
what it's-
think? No. The difference is 300,000. So you have 3 people. I don't know what you're looking at, a million.
Looking year to,
So year to date for 2023 was 1.7, and year to date in 2022 was 1.4. It's like so it's 300,000.
okay.
There was a big change also in benefits because the health insurance last year or this year went up 22%. Another item is the beach patrol cost, but there was a new contract that was approved in February 2022. It was increased to 251,000. And the waste management, the contract with Carolina Waste, they approach us and ask for the CPI adjustment since for a number of years there was no increase and the council approved that. So that was 10%. So anyway, I just look at the big variances and if there's any questions on this, I'll be happy to answer. So pretty much the expenditures are in line with what we budgeted for
DeRita,
this year.
to what extent is preparing a monthly report? Are you closing the same time? You haven't accelerated the closing, have you?
No, it's all good. Well, like I said, I close every month. It just, this month I was able to show February because how the Ways and Means fell, but I could be sometimes a month behind, just depending how the meetings fall. And, but I feel like I don't want to go into too much detail to spend too much time, just highlight the big variances. So, if no questions, we can move.
Well, I think more for Stephanie, and this is a little bit off topic, but just looking down at the line item, the MUSC pledge. What we got that were naming rights for the garden or something like that. I mean, do we have any sense of whether that garden will still exist if the building's moved in the different configuration, the square versus?
Yeah, I talked with them about that, and if they move over to the other location, they will share with us, again, the design for the garden.
Okay.
Yes, it would be just as nice.
Okay.
I'd already asked that question. I asked Collie that when he was here last month.
Okay.
Okay, so, so today we're going to continue the budget discussion. Last month, we looked at the projections for the revenues, and today I'll have the budget request for your consideration and approval. And so in overall, the total budgeted expenditures are, here, I'll maybe move it to this, I don't know if you see what I show you. They about $11,482,074 dollars, and they 12% on 1.2 million higher when we compare it to this year projected, how we end up the year. And this little chart, I thought that would be like a good visual that shows you that majority is administration or / general government expenditures and public safety. That's about 19% of our expenditures. Tourist promotion, 16%. Solid waste, 10%. And there is other community development services, charities. That includes the $200,000 for MUSC and the annual giveaway to
Yeah, charitable contribution sounds better than giveaway.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, kind of, yeah. Arts Council, 3%, environmental, 6%. I also have like a little table that shows you some efficiency ratio, but and I only did this because I know you're all business-minded, but we are not here to make profit, and, you know, we a government that provides service to our residents. We are trying to be mindful, or we are mindful of spending. So now I want to go. I don't want to go to take too long, but I do want to go line by line and just explain what we're budgeting. So the column that is like a little shaded, that's the budget.
Rhoda, can I just pause? Because this is a request that we really haven't been able to respond to the request per se. We've made some accommodation. Can you go back to the previous slide?
Oh, on this.
The pie chart. Notice the following table. Make sure everybody, zooms in on that. These are running 3-year averages. We figured that would be more reflective of trend because of the remarkable changes that have taken place. So you can see the change in revenue and then the change in expenses. And you can see why we've made so much money, because the revenue change has gone up so significantly over the expense line when you average 3 years at a time. So it's 19, 20, 21, it's 20, 21, 22, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, this was in response to a request someone had made about trending and really
Yes.
look at things, and I don't think you can look at anything in isolation. You have to look at it in terms of a kind of a composite, and that was the effort that she made. Thanks.
And we did those 3-year averages just to pretty much flatten the curves where we, had the years of like COVID year, or where there was tremendous drop in revenue and then a spike. So that's why it felt better to look at the 3-year averages.
Did you also sample 5 years on average, just to see how it looks?
We did not.
No,
Did
but
3
I'll be
years.
happy to do that.
So I note in one of the pages of this handout, page 3, that we're expanding the parking lot for $140,000. Is that out, the parking lot right out here outside the
So
window?
absolutely, we'll go to that, but this is the parking lot right there, where the employees park, that's what we're talking about. But we'll talk about those in detail.
Okay.
Need to expand it?
So we can talk about this. This is a request for your consideration and for your discussion. So this is all the requests.
The parking lot expansion, we'll talk about it, but it's not for here. It's for the back area where the employee park. Because of the town vehicles, we're running out of space. So it's the area next to where the garage dumpster is at, correct?
Yes, where the,
Yeah.
yes.
Parking right there.
Yes.
I mean, we've got a lot of unused parking right here. Why do we need to spend money to expand parking?
Well, so some of that project is gonna be, as we grow our electric
EV.
vehicle fleet, there's gonna be incorporated some charging stations for the electric vehicles back there. And again, it's a request, as Dorota was saying, but it would be for parking for the electric vehicles that have charging stations right there for them.
I'm surprised right next to that line item, there's 2 charging stations that cost $110,000. That's hard payback.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we,
Those are, right now, they've done, as part of our Go Green, and if we get other, obviously EV vehicles, the cost to do essentially install and get everything going, I think it was about $50,000 to $60,000 per EV station, and this would be for public, for the town.
It's in there, what exactly it was.
But Brian, this would mean that's the highest end charging
Right.
station we can
Correct.
get, right? And,
If
but
it
why
comes
would
in
we
more.
do this? I mean, the cars can charge overnight. They don't need, be charged in 20 minutes, which is 20 or 30 minutes, which is actually what you pay for with these 50, 60,000 stations.
Well, I
But
wasn't aware.
It goes down
I
to
guess that
like
makes sense.
20K if you're fine with the 6 or 8 hour charging.
Yeah, I'm all for going green, don't get me wrong, I'm very for it. It's just, I'm looking at this pragmatically from a dollars and cents perspective. That's
Well,
a
that's- but
very.
that's why I'm saying,
That's
Russ, I
hard to
think-
justify the money, but if you're gonna put going green ahead of financial dollars, that's okay.
This exercise is not to approve any line item. This
no,
exercise is to
absolutely.
approve a budget.
Okay.
If we, let's not forget that the line items will, at some point in time downstream, be converted into a specific request to come back for your approval.
Okay.
However, if we start looking at this in terms of line item approval vis-à-vis expenditures, as a whole different composition. She doesn't have that background. These are efforts, initiatives that the staff may have made, and that's reflective of it. So it's really a different, you're looking at it through a different filter than if you are a specific approval request. If you want to. If you don't want to, we better
Understood.
check our time, because it's going to change the time
No,
composition.
I understand. I just, so Michael, this should go under your Go Green initiative then. We should,
Yes, and we will look at this if what is really necessary.
Yes.
So for, publicly accessible charging station at Freshfields, for example, et cetera, that expense could make sense per station because A, the user contributes to
Right,
it.
right.
B, Berkeley Electric is very interested in this as well. It might fund. And there's the need for relatively quick charging, right? So
Yes.
you come to Freshfields, you park your car, you go into Harris Teeter for half an hour or so, and want to come back and definitely have enough charge to go back home.
Yeah.
Here, the need pattern, which we are still trying to figure out, I think, is probably different and would then require a potentially different, sophistication of the station, except we would come to a point with the initiative that also here, this will be publicly accessible stations.
understood. All right, but
So
this is for another day.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, this is for another day.
But that's part of the whole
Okay.
scheme of things that we have in the Go Green initiative.
Go ahead, Dorota.
Well, if I could, I see one other line there. And Mayor, I'm mindful of the comment you made, but just apropos of our earlier conversation, there's budgeted $200,000 for KIP and Beach Walker landscape enhancements. How is that broken down between those two?
So, I do have a little more detail, but it's actually 250. It's 250 in Excel spreadsheet. So this is actually for Beach Walker. I got the cost from already estimates from the.
The 250 is for Beach Walker.
That's correct.
Intersection, the
Depending-
intersection
intersection.
Well, no,
Or are you
it's,
talking about the paving?
okay, so they told me from what, it can range from 175 to 350, depending on how deep we're gonna go with that. So for the budget purposes, I kind of took it 250.
Dorota, are you talking about Beach Walker paving or the Beach Walker intersection?
No, I'm talking about beach walker landscaping.
Landscaping.
The design that you just approved, this is, I have estimates for actual cost.
Okay, and how does that compare to what we actually spent on KIP?
On the Parkway, we spent 570 on the landscaping, on the actual cost, construction.
And that's a mile versus 2 miles?
2 miles,
Okay,
so,
yeah.
so it's comparable. So I put 250 in the budget as a placeholder, an estimate, and that's what it is for the landscaping for the beach walker. I have other also estimate for other sections of the contract that but we can talk about it later. So, okay, so the personnel cost, so as the mayor mentioned, so this is for discussion. Next, there is no approval today or anything. Next month, I will bring you, after today's discussion, whatever you feel that should stay in the budget or be removed or added or whatever, I'll bring you the draft that you will then recommend to the town council for approval. The first is the personnel cost, and the number shows an increase. All my numbers are compared to projected this year. It shows an increase of about $300,000 to $80,000, and this is due to the following. In this draft, I included 8%, or about $150,000 for salary increases for next year. There is no, we're not asking for any additions. However, this year, we didn't have all 24 full-time employees as we're projecting for next year, and we're asking for 1 intern for a planning department, for John. There is an increase, I'm sorry, where's my, I'm sorry, I'm missing a page. Okay, I apologize. There is a 1% or 28,000 increase in the retirement systems. That's the PIBA. Every year they increasing by 1% to cover the liability they have, unfunded liability. There's also 40,000 or about 3.7% increase in health insurance, also mandated by PIBA. And we're asking to increase tuition reimbursement from $5,000 to $10,000 per employee. Right now it's $5,000 in our policy. And I know in the past there was some discussions about the personnel cost, how it went through a couple of years. So I included like a little chart for you to see how it looked through the 5 years, and so I also put like the full-time employee equivalent and average it per person, so you'll see the increases are not as high as you look at the full numbers that goes like into 100,000. The next slide item is the public safety cost. I budgeted it with no change, as at this moment we don't have enough information to budget. As you know, the county contract will end in a couple of months, and we don't know what the cost is, so I just left it as it is for this year. The beach patrol, there is no change. There was a new contract signed last year. Utilities and supplies show like small changes, but this is just due to new staff. We need to buy some more computers and laptops. Communication is no change. Waste management is no change. Insurance cost is estimated to increase 10%. as the premiums are increasing every year.
Can I just, for waste management, just so you all know, we're going to be pushing that out this year for
Yes, so the-
RFP, so potentially next year, it could be an increase, it'll
You'll
probably be an
see,
increase.
we'll probably see a change. So we're gonna, we have a contract with Carolina Waste. It was a 5-year contract with 2-year extensions. So we're gonna exercise the extension for this year. And next year, the contract runs from July 1st. So 2025 year, we'll see a new contract. We'll rebid that contract in the fall. And we'll come back to you with that, because what we do right now is that the cost for the regular service, just a curbside, is picked up by the town. So we subsidize that cost. But any additional service, we charge back to the residents or to the businesses or rentals. If this is what we want to do with the new contract, we'll see how the how the bids come back. We can change the structure to different. So right now, we pay about $1 million and we get 600,000 in the revenue. So it looks like the town subsidizes $400,000, but we can recoup all of it, depending on the council, how the council what directions to go. So probably like November, December, we'll have some results and we'll bring it to you during budget discussion to make those decisions. The profession.
Sorry, just a
Yes.
little digression. Stephanie, Stephanie, question. Do we, is the town receiving any complaints regarding Carolina Waste Management's service?
I will say, we used to receive a lot more complaints than what we're receiving today, but it's handled through DeRota's department.
Yes.
Julie manages them. We have I think, a great relationship. They stop through here if we find a problem. Julie, our receptionist, who's the one that directly works with them. So I would say that number has dropped significantly.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes we see a peak when sometimes they have a lot of day workers, and sometimes we'll see a peak on certain routes. And at that point, they essentially have day workers who don't know our various systems. And so, but other than that, I don't know if there's anything else that
No,
you
so
want to comment.
we've worked with them to, in our contract right now, if they don't correct an issue within 24 hours, we can fine them. So we had 2 instances that it hasn't been corrected. So there are still complaints.
Well, in our neighborhood, I keep getting complaints that they're taking on Mondays, they're often taking both the
Yes.
recycling and trash out same time and throwing in the truck together, and they're saying, what's the purpose of doing the separating?
We've addressed that too. And what happened through this couple of years that there is a really significant improvement, but they also dedicated a supervisor to this area, and they do try to work with the crews to improve that. So we've heard about those issues, and it's been addressed, and
This morning they did it, so I just,
they did
yeah.
again. Okay, well, sometimes we ask them to take pictures, so, but there is a huge improvement.
So just out of curiosity, is it backdoor service?
Yeah.
And your recycle bin is next to your trash bin? And so depending on the crew, they don't know the difference, because we have the same issue if it's backdoor service.
Yep.
A lot of people don't store their recycle bin next to their trash can, so it doesn't give the opportunity to take both of them. And then in theory, not where you are, but where we are, the recycle has to actually, even if you have backdoor service, the recycle has to be taken to the curb. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen where you are, but it doesn't happen where I am, because it's a different setup, if you will.
Well, and there's no
We have other
question,
we have other
in the
problems.
back door, it's hard to distinguish the color of the 2 cans, because they're not that different, especially once they're dirty. But the fact is, one has trash, the other has a lot of glass and
So
stuff.
it probably looks the same to a guy collecting trash.
But they are emptying
Yeah, no,
both
no, I
and
get
throwing
it.
in the same truck.
Yes, but we're working with them constantly. to improve. Okay, so the next one is the professional services, and this is our town attorney, town prosecutor, auditors, and we just put 10,000 for miscellaneous, so there's no new requests as what it is this year. Consultants, there is a little decrease, but we're just using a different services. So we have 45,000 to continue with the comprehensive plan that this contract has been already approved. We put a 150,000 placeholder for zoning codes update, 50,000 for traffic engineering, it's a placeholder. 30,000 for structural consultant for upcoming commercial projects is the same as this year. 80,000 for public safety study, it's a placeholder. And the 43,000, this is my department, and just miscellaneous consulting services. Pretty much every department puts like a placeholder in there. 8.5 for deer removal, same as this year. 15 for tallow tree control, that's a new request. 6,000 for stenographers, it's the same. And 10,000 for documents management, same as this year. The maintenance cost pretty much 13,000 decrease. Travel and training, a little up, 15,000 increase, but there is more staff. Rentals, 4,000 increase, but that's 2 contracts. So tourism and recreation shows a big increase, but it's mostly because we're collecting more in the state accommodation tax and we need to spend more. So the biggest contributor to it, it's about 380,000, is for the state accommodation tax applicants that you'll see next Ways and Means. The recommendation, the State Accommodation Tax Committee meets this Friday, and you'll see their recommendation. So they have a pool of 2 million to allocate or to recommend for allocation, and that amount only is higher than was last year, only because we got more money in that fund. Same thing with the promotional fund, is 30% of what we receive, so we have to spend it. Arts and cultural is the same as it was last year. The conservancy is up 52,000, but you just approved the purchase of that, the money towards the purchase of the land across the street, so that's why. There is really not much there. So one thing here is that I'm assuming that the state accommodation, in those numbers, I'm assuming the state accommodation tax committee will fund us 70% for our applications, meaning the beach patrol and the police department. If they fund us less, that number for the applicants will go up, if that makes sense. So.
Well, I think the fact that it went from 85% to 75%.
So, yeah, so.
Presumptuous, and I have all the confidence in the world of the chairman that will not take place.
Well, in the past, we claimed that 85% of people on the island are tourists. And we had this number, I got this number from looking at the number of passes that KICA issued. And that was maybe 6 years ago. In meantime, KICA stopped issuing all the passes. They gave the ability of issuing to the management company. So there is no data for me to collect. I can't get the number of passes issued because whatever management company is issued is not recapped by KICA. So I had to get this number a different way. So I asked all the management companies for the occupancy rates. That's how I arrived with the number of tourists. I compared it to the full-time residents, registered voters, and I came with 70%. I presented this at the state accommodation tax meeting in November or October, and they were fine with that. with that, yes, with that rationale, and they accepted it. So Mr. Warren was really happy because every year we were challenged with that number, why we have 85%.
No, I'm just commenting 70%, okay, but we're not going lower.
That's correct. And this is their recommendation. They will come to you, to Ways and Means, and then to the council. So it's up to you what it is going to be. But, well, anyway, so the next item, the contributions, 200, I left it at 200. And next Ways and Means, you'll see the recommendations and the applications for that money. Other cost, it recaps like different items. So there is, and it shows 118,000 increase, but it's only because there's 100,000 contingency included in next year. We had it in this year, but we never used contingency as, this is more of an item to balance the budget, but because we have the access, always an access of revenues, we don't really use the contingency 100. So that's why the increase in that line item. Number 8, yeah, that's the, yeah. Yeah, I'll change that to the actual.
Rhoda, I'm sorry. Go back to the contributions. There's a calculation. I forget. Wasn't there a calculation in terms of how contributions? It's
So, yeah, so that was.
Percentage of something.
So it's what we have as our policy is it's 200 or 30% of our general fund balance for last year. So what happened one year, because of construction of this building, we actually we didn't have a surplus.
Right.
So we put this policy, or maybe the policy was in place, but we revised it. So it's 30% of the net or income, the net, or 200,000 of general fund.
Just to mention that to council, I mean, that's something that we may want to think about. I mean, here we are sitting at close to almost $30 million worth of a fund balance with just remarkable years in terms of earning. Just something to think about. We haven't moved that $200,000 in quite a while, have we?
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it just year before last it went up because
It was 150 for a couple years, and then it went up to 200,000.
2 years ago? Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I knew I remembered the $200,000. How long was it at 150?
When I first started, it was 150. Yeah.
Wouldn't our Kiowa Conservancy, doesn't the money we gave to the Kiowa Conservancy allocated to them, wouldn't that count as well?
We don't count that anymore. We count that separately. They used to, before I started, historically, before they would come, before the state aid tax committee and ask for money, and then other pots of money we would give them. But essentially, I mean, you guys can count that, but we don't count it as charitable contributions because you have 3 ages that you fund, and the conservancy is just separate funding.
So
We
right
worked
now,
it out with them years ago that it had to be project-specific. I think we just felt uncomfortable with the fact that there was an amount of money going from one pocket to the other pocket, and how is it used, defined, or whatever. So now they come project-specific, and then it's funded project-specific.
and
These are need specifics, and we changed the criteria to that a few years ago.
last year.
Last year?
and what's good about it too is that we claim that those projects are tourism related, because there is some that bring people to, there's like seminars or something, so we can actually use the special funds, while the contributions go from general fund. So that's better. And okay, so finally, the capital expenditures. So it's 250. It's an estimate based on just the pretty much midpoint of what I was given from our OSD for beach walker enhancements, landscaping enhancement. It's 115,000 to replace 3 vehicles and purchase 1 UTV. And this is a net of trade value, so this is an estimate, assuming that we'll get back what we have. So we asking to replace the 4Runner, the Public Works Toyota Tundra, and the Building Department Tacoma. We also asking.
Sorry, would those be the 3 vehicles added in Public Works and Building Department? Are those all 3 EVs?
No, I guess the Tacoma will, the 4Runner will be 4Runner, right? And,
Well, we could certainly incorporate EVs into that.
okay. And another request was for 250. So this is for those charging station and the parking lot expansion. And I know we already have a lot of this discussion. So this is for the parking lot expansion for where the employees are in the back.
Let me ask a question just on the thing like the charging station, when we get ready to actually go spend that money, somebody's going to come to town council with a proposal on what it is they want to buy and what that costs and the
Yes.
type of thing and all of that?
This is a placeholder, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just so we have a direction now that we can explore that project and come back to you that what details and but we got okay from the council.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, so the budget also includes number of transfers. I'm not going to go into the detail because this is just between the different funds. But what I want you to look at now is like how the change in the fund balance based on the request I asked for. So the general fund still bring us about 1.2 million. The state accommodation fund has loss, but we have to spend that money because there is a two-year limit to spend it. The county accommodation tax, we have a loss, but we also need to spend that money because it has to be spent as received, and other funds do get a surplus. And with all these requests, so you'll see the very bottom line shows you the fund balance or budgeted fund balance, and we will end up with about 30 million fund balance, which fund balance is not necessarily cash, but for us, normally it's not cash because it's reduced by the current receivables and liabilities, but we don't really have any. We report on a cash basis, so pretty much if everything goes as projected this year and budgeted, we'll end up with a little over 30 million in cash and investments. Wow. So the draft also.
I'm sorry, what's your projected return on your income?
So right now it's like about 4%. But we did, last year it was different, but this year, and that's what I'm projecting in the interest revenue.
Probably lock in a little more than that now.
Yes, so one of my project is to look at our investment policy too, and we'll do that, after the budget. And the budget draft also has a lot of details per department, per fund, but I don't want to take more of your time right now, but just looking for your feedback or questions now on what we have in that draft. And next month, I'll come back with the full draft and proposal. then we'll ask you to recommend or approve with the town council.
DeRuta, one reconciliation. So we ended 12/31/22 at 29.7 in terms of the fund balance, or 29.4, excuse me, end of fund balance. And then we're going to project 24 at 30.5. So, our uses have exceeded because our margin was 5 million, it's projected for 22-23, and 3 million for 23-24. So when you get a moment, reconcile that in terms of how that, it's not all additive, I guess is what I'm saying, so.
So you're saying, okay, because we're projecting 5 million to this year and 3 million, and it's not 8 million when you're looking at that.
Exactly,
Okay,
please.
well,
But I can't pick that up in terms of just looking at the source and application. I can't see it, so if you could just reconcile that.
okay. So are you all good with the request that we have in the budget? Is it okay to?
Yeah, I think, we'll look at it a little more critically next month, but
Okay,
that's. really
DeRuta
the
and I
one
had a very brief conversation earlier. She had talked with her counterpart down at Sanibel. They're still cleaning up, and you said that they're at $80 million?
yes, yes. And they're still
But how
cleaning
much
up.
is funded?
idea on how
Or
much
how
it
much
would
is
cost us.
compensated or?
Well, they haven't, she said maybe in 2 years, they don't know when they're gonna get any, 75%, they're hoping. There is no, final agreements, but they were lucky, they have nice reserves. And what I've learned is that they were able to get a line of credit for 20 million. Still, there is a lot to it because the island is still not open to tourists.
Still gonna cost them $20-25 million minimum out of pocket after.
They do have a property tax.
Yeah.
And then cover that for couple of years, and you get money from FEMA, it's not going to be.
Oh, no, it's years that you'll get the
Well,
money.
that's, I guess, what the loan is for.
Yeah.
But what also a lot of people continuously forget is that the top line is dropping to close to zero, right? Because no tourists, no taxes,
Oh,
nothing.
yes. So,
Right? I mean, people just look
You have
at,
to- you have to
oh,
fund-
we
you
have
have to
30
fund
million,
yourself.
and a storm will cost us
Yeah.
this. But what really matters, if we are a year out of business,
You have to fund yourself
that's
and clean up.
That's where it gets.
And it's,
So-
the cost of both of those is $50 million. Yeah, it's a huge number.
So I'm preparing for this reserve discussion that we'll have. That's why I was talking to my colleagues that were in that situation. So I will have more comprehensive or more data for that discussion. I just happened to share that with the mayor. But there is also just a few more items that I wanna. They're not in the budget, but there are for discussion that we just briefly talk about the island-wide charging stations. If this is something that you want the staff to explore, and again, everything will come to you with the contract, but this is very preliminary. We were thinking about 5 locations for 2 dual port charging stations, and without any fees passing to the customers, it would be about 1.1 million with that cost. So if we just want to know if the staff should explore this more, go into details, and how you feel about this project.
I think we should explore it, but I think it's unrealistic to assume that we're just gonna do it for free.
Okay.
I mean, there's a multitude of things. First of all, I don't think we need to assume that everything happens in a 12-month period,
Yes.
right? So the locations will not pop up, instantly. They, first of all, need negotiations. There's a lot of, infrastructure that we have to look at. right, which is probably at the moment not included in your numbers.
Yes.
We need, I mean, there's the decisions about what category we are using, high-end, $60,000 per station, kind of super quick charging, to, Brian, what was it, like a 20K, or I think even below 20K for a station that charges overnight. I mean, there are so many variables still, but I think the key variable is really, you know, it's probably going to be at least a 2-year process for even those stations, right?
Okay.
Also because we want to monitor, you know, how often they're used and you know, is it really the right location? I mean,
So there's
I
that.
don't think we have to, Dorota, I don't think we have to debate the 1 million because it's too premature.
Okay.
But I think it would be a good move for you to put a certain, you know, couple of $100K into the budget as a placeholder,
Okay,
right? And then we'll see,
okay,
right, how we progress. I mean,
okay.
we hope that we can, you know, get a first meeting with all the stakeholders next month, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
See
Okay.
how quickly we can move.
Okay, so that's a great suggestion. So that's a good placeholder. So, and another item, the Kiowa Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive intersection. There was a lot of discussion, and we look at some option how to address the safety and the traffic issues there. And there is also talks about the building, and also there is no placeholder for this project, but I feel like we need to, but because the scope of this project is unknown, so there's hard to assign any cost or estimates, but if you feel like I need to put something as a placeholder, just so the full budget is shaped and we know we're not under.
I kind of think it's the same thing as what we just talked about. I mean, we know, if you look at that project there at that intersection, you've got, and you wanted to kind of break it down into components and look at maybe which parts are shorter term than others, or maybe more defined. You've got the exit issue, exit from the island. That's one project, if you will. The other is the roads around the intersection, and then that's 2 parts, with or without the real estate property coming into play. And so, you know, to me, you need to have some number in there that addresses that. But, you know, the exit road I see that as potentially a shorter term thing. But the other work on the road, you know, it'll be 9 months before anything is done in that regard of any significance, depending on what happens to the real estate building. I mean, if the partners decide, no, we're not going to do anything to sell that building to you, then we've got a different set of plans that we have to go after.
Didn't we already have a placeholder number for what was going to be the little island in the center?
I thought we
Yeah, I
did.
thought we already had a
So
place.
this is for this year, we had the placeholder, yeah.
And
So
what's that
for-
placeholder?
This placeholder was, I think like 350.
For the exit lane.
No,
Well, it
for
wasn't
the
really
intersection.
specific. It was just a play for the intersection.
It was for
But I
the-
for
thought
the
we
work.
had a specific, we
we
were
knew
going
what the
forward
exit
with a
lane was gonna
specific
cost.
plan
No,
before.
well,
We were before, but at the last council meeting, we had talked about the KARE. And so right now, we have essentially put that project on hold because they don't need,
I know we
Yeah.
have, but I thought there was already a number.
there was in this current budget, so she's just asking, do you want to carry it over to fiscal year '24 budget?
so, but the number.
Yeah, I mean,
We
that
can still
is-
carry that same number over, we just don't know what that project's going to look like.
The number was, that number was a place, because we worked on that number last year, so it was also placeholder, so it was really no based on.
Yeah, I think what we're just saying is just carry that number over to fiscal year '24.
350 placeholder for that project.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I would even suggest to bump it up to 5, because we know this, I mean, no matter what solution we will finally decide about, I mean, it's going to be
Yeah,
costly.
well, make it 500,000
But
then. I mean, it doesn't-
necessary,
I mean,
so.
we don't know what it looks like. So
Well, we're probably going to wind up doing a circle, with everything that's going to happen over there. So
if we get the property.
I think ultimately that we're going to wind up doing a circle.
So
At some
you
point.
guys will have, you'll have I'm going to discuss with the mayor I just got today. The only way the circle is going to work is that we're going to have to move it down, and we're going to have to acquire the building. If we don't acquire the building, that circle will not work because the Kika Pass office will be too close, so we can't keep the circle at the intersection.
And I thought.
So the only way for that
and I
circle to
thought
work
we're
is for
talking
it
to-
is to
And I
come
would even assume that we need to do.
west.
I would even assume we need to do both, right? I mean, move the circle towards, the Mingo Point direction, but also move the gates,
You can't move it.
You don't have to
can't
move the
it to
gate
Mingo
with the,
Point direction.
with the new, with the possible design, you don't have to move the gate. It will still work. We're moving the circle just west of essentially the
Well,
real
let's-
estate
let's look
office.
at that.
But you can't move it west.
But we shouldn't have to, yeah, we can show, but this is not the point to have the discussion. So I just got it today, and you have to take a look.
So make a placeholder of 500,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
For the
Okay.
intersection.
okay. So, and there's one more. No, please.
All right, you said you could move it west of where it is, of the real estate office? How?
All right, but that's not today. That's
No,
not,
that's.
that's
Keep
not,
going.
that's
Keep
not
going,
today.
Dorota.
One more item that, for consideration, that is not in the budget because the design portion you just guys approved. So I have costs or estimates for the construction of those other phases. And for the Grow Native Trail and the Rain Garden is 125,000. And for the Parkway, the finish, the items that they haven't been originally is another 150. So I'm just gonna
Put them in, that's.
add those.
Some of those are gonna be a hard sell, but.
Yeah.
But, if you wanna have a number that is representative of what we potentially will spend.
Okay.
then I
Would you put in
those
for Beach Walker again?
So for Beach Walker, they gave me from 175 to 350 between. So I put 250,
That was for the paving and the landscaping.
just landscaping of Beach Walker.
Well, I think now with the new proposed plan, okay. I
They just
thought that-
gave me, so it's based on the new one, because I just got it,
It's going to cost that much.
yes.
Okay,
So I'll add those two, 125 for the native trail and 150 for Parkway as placeholders.
I'm sorry, I have one other question with regards to the rain garden. So is this rain garden the one that we funded the Conservancy on? Because we gave them money to do the rain garden, they wanted to do it here. So are we adding to the rain garden, or is this two separate rain gardens?
This would be the same one, but they don't have approval to do it yet. I know that's something that we need to talk.
Right, but we gave them money to do it. So is this money in the budget in addition to what we gave them? It was for this current fiscal year, so I guess if they don't use the money in this fiscal year, this would be a new project. But I thought we gave them money to do a rain garden, because they were going to look on an island. They decided they don't want to do it at the island, they want to do it here.
OSD probably doesn't have that. They probably didn't get relayed that we.
The
have
Conservancy.
funded that
Okay.
To the Conservancy, so.
So I'm only pointing out that we'll just look at the timing, because if they're wanting to do it this year, it's already funded. But if they're talking about moving it to fiscal year '24, then this was a Conservancy project, this wasn't a town project. So they may have to go back through the environmental committee to get reapproved again for the project. But we can talk about that offline. Sorry, I didn't realize that was for that.
Okay, well, I will just put it as a placeholders.
Yes, that's the answer.
yes.
Technical question, capital outlays. Relationship between a capital outlay as a use and a capital outlay as an expense. The numbers don't foot. What are the differences? Should they foot?
They food.
They do? How did you, that's what, 615 for,
So,
where's the 615? 715. 760.
2.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they should, 250, 500, 650. No, you have 250, 115, and 250. That's 615.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was adding the pledges. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't see the last one.
No, that's
Okay.
good.
All right, so
Okay.
we expense it, and then it's okay.
Yeah, it's all cash basis, you know, this is just an expenditure, it just.
So at this
fancy.
particular moment in time, then okay.
So I just want to make sure, because, so I will be adding another 1 million in expenditures, but placeholders.
Placeholders.
Yes,
Right? Yep.
discussions. Yes, so we're going to 2.
But that's okay.
But this is all, a lot of placeholders, right? So, okay.
And-
Okay, any other questions?
Just so you know, Dorota, I got the numbers just minutes before the meeting
Oh.
because of some mistakes. So I will probably send you an email
Oh,
in the next
sure.
few days with a couple of comments from my side.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Well, talk about placeholders. There should be some relevance to probability. In other words, is it a placeholder like just an idea? Or is it a placeholder because we have a 80-degree confidence level that it's going to happen, or 50%?
Some of them are because we know what the estimated cost is of that project if we choose to do it, like these landscape things.
Well,
The other ones
I'm just saying, I can
are-
come up with something that I think may happen.
Well, I think all of them are projects that we believe could happen next year. You know, the intersection, all those kinds of things. I think the bigger question is 500,000 in there for that intersection a reasonable estimate? It could be a $2 million project.
Or more.
Well, I can,
It's like
I can
unlikely to
tell you it'll
be,
be, I can tell you it'll be a lot more.
Yeah, I know it will be.
but the question is, would it be that amount all spent next year?
Well, yeah, it could be a 2-year project.
Yes,
at-
that's true.
At $4 million or whatever the combination is, yeah,
The KRE building purchase isn't in here either.
right.
No.
There is no major, I'm saying probability may happen.
Yes,
Well, I think I think the things you have to include are the things that you think are likely to be the case. And, if we wanted to, I would be reluctant to put, they ought to be things that you think are likely to occur.
Well, and then remember, we're not putting any revenue sources.
Right.
Everything's being financed
Is an expense,
as expense.
yeah, which is a conservative way to budget the exposure, so.
So, but I also want to bring your attention to this, to this schedule now. So how we want to balance the budget? If we're going to add another 1 million to a general fund, for example, right now we're showing 1.2, geez, I can't see even, 1.2 excess of revenues. We're going to add another 1 million, so there's only 200,000. If we add 1.5 million, we're going to have to take from the reserves to balance the
So
budget.
just add $1 million.
And this is something, do we want to do it? Do we want to take from the reserves to balance our budget or no? So that's why I think those placeholders are a good thing, because then it's an exercise, maybe this project cannot happen unless we want to take from the reserves.
Yeah, maybe we buy 2 trucks and not 3, maybe-
Exactly.
But that's the whole reason you budget this, is to get a good, reasonable estimate on where your expenses are compared to what you think your revenues are
Yeah,
going to be.
so,
and you fine tune it.
Yeah, and then you fine tune it. I mean, even next month, when you give us the thing that we're going to approve,
Yes.
there'll be some tweaking of those numbers.
Oh,
As we
absolutely.
look at it very critically when you've put it all together.
yes.
And it'll be different still than what we've looked at today.
Yes, and I will put, like, I just said, the 1 million, this is not going to be from general fund, because we do have the main road is or beach walker, that's the tourism related. So 70% of it is going to go from other funds. I just gave an example.
Right.
That you need to decide how you want to balance the budget, or it's good to have reserve to balance it too.
But I would say that based on what we've talked about today, the numbers are just whatever they come out to be. And then next month, when we look at, okay, based on what information I was given and what we talked about today, here's what you guys need to approve for the council.
Yes.
And we should look at it very critically next time.
Well, and I would say that, you know, some of these expenses are really, you know, related to a shorter period of time of benefit, and some of these expenses, like the intersection, I mean, this is a long-term investment for
Yeah, I mean,
us.
to Brad's point,
So
it's not a year,
then
so, you know,
I-
how much of it do you think you'll spend this year? Well, maybe
Yes.
that's 500,000.
Oh, exactly, because that's good.
Next year, it could be $1.5 million, because that's when really the heavy lifting of that project will occur.
But even then, you know, I think we might not have hesitations to actually use some of the existing funds because it's really a long-term investment.
Right.
And that's what we have the monies for.
Yep.
Right? I mean, if we have expenditures that are really, you know, ongoing topics, that should really be funded by our ongoing revenue stream. But if we have really, you know, one-time big infrastructure, you know, game-changing investments, some of this could come from the funds.
Is there a way to get some money from the county if this road intersection improvement, we can argue is a lot for the park down on Beach Walker? There's got to be a way to get some money from them. And do we need to go through an application process now to?
We go through an application process, but yeah, we can request funding through the road, escaping me right now. Essentially, our right turn lane off of the Parkway.
yeah.
We had got funding for that. I think about, in a tune of about 400,000 or so, they reimbursed us back for, so there's opportunities if funds available to apply for them.
So how long does it take to get an application approved? Is that something we should start now?
I will look into it and see if the application process
enough.
is opened up.
Fair enough.
Because we have to have costs and all those different things, so I can see.
All right,
Anything else? I know the mayor has question. I can feel it. Well, okay.
all right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you.
Any citizen comments? No citizens? All right, committee members, Brad,
Nothing, Mr. Chairman?
Russ,
No, sir.
Michael,
Nothing to add, thank you.
Mayor? All right, motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second and third.
Adjourned. Thanks, everyone.